All right, so this is Wicked, directed by John M. Chu and starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. It's an adaptation of a musical, prequel musical of The Wizard of Oz. Other things have done this, recontextualizing the villain, making them showing things from their perspective or her perspective, and painting them in a more sympathetic light, right? Like we didn't know the full story. We didn't actually know because in the original movie, it's pretty black and white. Like the Wicked Witch of the West is evil and is out for Dorothy and must be stopped, before she's able to get home. But in this, it's making things, it's telling things in a different way and casting her in a better light. Elphaba, played by Cynthia Erivo in this, who would become the Wicked Witch. She's born with green skin and long fingernails, long kind of sharp fingernails, and so she's treated badly pretty much from the beginning. Her dad doesn't want her, and she gets picked on when she's a little girl, things like that. But she's mostly trying to be there for and stand up for her little sister who's in a wheelchair. And her little sister ends up getting into when they're older, ends up getting into a magic school. And so she goes there with her to make sure everything's okay. But she ends up having a burst of emotion and ends up displaying her magic and levitating things and things like that. Something that she's been doing since she was a little girl. So she pretty much immediately gets enrolled in that school. And she becomes roommates with Glinda, played by Ariana Grande. They start off antagonistic, but they become friends eventually. And she really is all about standing up for people who are different, who are mistreated, because obviously she can empathize. And because of certain things that happen, I won't spoil. She really wants to see the wizard, so she's trying to control her magic and learn more and things like that, so she could potentially see the Wizard of Oz at some point. So, what did I think about this movie? I thought this movie was really great. Right? I think people are right. Like this really surprised me. I did not expect it to be this good. In a lot of aspects too. I mean, the movie looks fantastic. I mean, it starts off with pretty amazing shots. I mean, the colors and everything. You get to see, the Emerald City and all that, and Dorothy and them skipping down the road. You get to see the. It starts off with the witch's hat with the water in the water, basically. After they've defeated her, and it looks so great. I mean, it just performances are all great. Ariana Grande is probably the best I've seen her in anything. Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. He's it's such perfect casting, and he's so good being this charismatic fraud that it almost feels like he should have played this character before. Like it feels perfect. He's so good as that character. But the standout is Cynthia Erivo. I mean, from the moment she starts to sing, it's just it's breathtaking. Like it really is. Like she has such a powerful, great voice. I remember when she was in the live action Pinocchio, which sucks ass. Um, uh, she's not in that much of that movie. She's in even less of that than the Blue Fairy was in the original movie. But she sings in that scene that she's in, and I remember thinking like, wow, this is the best scene in the movie just because of how great of a singer she is. And this is no different. I like her dynamic with Glinda, right? Well, they're like polar opposites. Glinda just gets whatever she wants and loses it if she doesn't get what she wants. She's super popular, whereas Elphaba is an outcast character who gets made fun of. I mean, people like run away from her even in fear because of her green skin. And seeing that antagonism of Elphaba being strong enough to still stand up for herself against her, and then certain things happen and they come together, and because they're so different, it makes that dynamic interesting. I like that. The music, starting off, I thought the music was good, but it wasn't really doing much for me. But then once it got to a certain point that the music was all great, and it's when they're at that school and Elphaba has that song. I was like, wow, that was good. I leaned over to the person I was in the movie with. I was like, wow, that was good. Okay, this is kind of winning me over. And then there's a song number that it's basically Glinda and Elphaba not getting along and the antagonism they have, and it's just that scene was the one that first like really won me over because the musical performance of it was so good, and that goes with other ones too, where like there's a lot of really good choreography with the other students. It's going back and forth. There's some nice camera work, and the singing is all great. Other than there's only really one criticism I have of the singing that we'll get to, but it has so much. The movie, just especially when it comes to those musical numbers, has so much energy. Like it feels like you're watching like a musical on stage. Like it just gets you involved in the songs so well. All that good stuff out the way. Now we go to negatives. The first negative is my one negative when it comes to the music and the singing. Um, they're doing this thing with Ariana Grande where they have her singing like really high pitched, and it doesn't work, right? It's to the point where like because it starts off with that, and I was like, wow, I can't even understand what she's saying, and it doesn't sound very good. I guess to be like Glinda from The Wizard of Oz, but it doesn't work. There's also certain annoying prequel things, explaining things or showing the origin of things that don't really feel all that necessary. Example, Star Wars, Solo. Well, how did Han Solo get his blaster, the DL-44? I don't care. And the explanation you got, okay, somebody tossed it to him. I was like, okay, I don't care. With this, there's like, oh, why did she wear that pointy hat? Oh, why does she fly on a broom? The explanation was she's a witch, and that's what witches do. But here, they kind of have more of an explanation behind it, and it's like, well, it doesn't feel all that necessary. The one that was annoying, like made me roll my eyes. It's like hack prequel stuff. Is when they see the wizard, and the wizard's like, "Oh, I'm thinking about having a road that leads to me, but what color should it be?" And it's like, okay, and they spent a couple minutes going through what color the road should be. It's the yellow brick road. Like we're getting there at some. Oh, yellow? I don't know about that. It went on for too long. I was like, this feels unnecessary. With certain things being explained that I don't feel like need to be explained at all. There's certain things where it's like, well, if this is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, and especially it's about the Wicked Witch, um, why why wouldn't you have more of an explanation as to why water melts her and kills her? In the original movie, I mean, it really just, as much as I love that movie, it feels like it's just a convenient way for Dorothy and them to be able to defeat the witch and get back to the to the wizard. But with this movie is like they kind of touch on it a little bit barely, but it's like okay, that's something that you could probably explain, and you wouldn't even have to do all that much. Like I don't know, magic users are just naturally weak to water or something like that. But there's definitely not an explanation there. But whatever. This is part one. They might explain that going forward, which leads to my last criticism is that this is a part one. This movie, I think it's like 2 hours and 40 or something like that. Yeah, 2 hours and 40 minutes. I saw somebody say that you don't feel the long runtime. You definitely do. Around the time when they were about to, or at least I did, around the time when they were about to get to the wizard, I was like, okay, we gotta kind of wrap this up. But it with there's certain things like I said with the water where like there's certain threads where it's like especially with this being a prequel to Wizard of Oz where it's like yeah there's definitely some things there but by the end of it when she's flying and things like that it's like what I don't see why you really need an entire other movie to explain this or to really have this be a prequel to Wizard of Oz. It doesn't feel like you really need to do that. Feels like you could have made this a little bit longer and even tied up the things in here that are kind of left not completely resolved. That's about it though. It's a fun movie. It's very engaging, especially in these musical numbers, and the music's all for the most part good. Like I said early on, I needed to kind of hear a little bit more, but once it got going, it really got going. And the performances are great, especially Cynthia Erivo. And even though I don't really see the point of this being part one, I mean, for what it is, it's still I think a really great movie. It really surprised me. I did not expect it to be. Um, the trailers were all right, and I was like, okay, well maybe this will be good, but this is like really great. Like I think this is one of the best movies of the year. So I'm gonna give this beyond awesome. Definitely wasn't expecting it, but I really enjoy this movie a lot. Like I can't say that enough. So that's Wicked, or Wicked Part One. It says Wicked Part One was the original title. It's like, well, if it's a Part One, just go ahead and put it in the title, right? Because without doing that, it kind of feels like you're trying to trick people into thinking this isn't a Part One when it is. But anyway, Wicked, beyond awesome. That's it. Subscribe, and we're done.